Chris, you came into politics from a business background. Do you think that there are parts of the Labour Party that hold it against Sadiq Khan, that he said he wanted to be the most pro-business mayor in the history of London?
Well, very possibly. They don't like that. But I think it's rather sinister and just faintly chilling that even in their own party, they're trying to silence someone they think is not on message.
Well, they did change their mind and give him a platform.
They did change their mind, which is a good thing. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Sadiq Khan. I think he's broken promises on things like freezing rail fares. But he is nonetheless, as your piece said, the holder of one of the biggest mandates in Europe. And the fact his own party leadership tried to silence him is a bit sinister and a bit chilling, because for me, free speech is extremely important. And I hope that's not a foretaste to come if they do ever get into power.
I doubt they could silence Sadiq. So,
well, he's been speaking on an issue we're going to talk about more from you guys in just a second. Chris, we know you're not a fan of Sadiq Khan. Do you think that he has his fingerprints on this decision?
Well, he certainly does. I mean, he's ultimately responsible for TfL, and he immediately endorsed their decision. So this is essentially Sadiq Khan's decision. I think it's the wrong decision. Look, I mean, there are clearly legitimate safety concerns, but I think those could and should have been addressed without needing an all-out ban. I've spoken to Uber, and they've said publicly that at no point in the last few months, or even in the last year, have TfL gone to Uber and said, unless you fix X, Y, Z, you're going to lose their licence. At no point was that ultimatum given. And if Sadiq Khan was being reasonable, he would have sat down with Uber, told them what they needed to change, and demanded they change it. An outright ban throws the baby out with the bathwater, but for the appeal, 40,000 drivers, 90% of whom are from ethnic minority backgrounds, would have been thrown out of work with just 8 days' notice. I thought the Labour Party was supposed to stand up for working people, but to throw out 40,000 people from their job at 8 days' notice is not standing up for them.
But isn't this a pretty simple case? Just a second. Isn't this a pretty simple case of you have to play by the rules? Uber came over here. If you want to drive taxis in London, you need to be regulated. You need to get an appropriate licence. They didn't. They failed to do that, and therefore they're not allowed to drive.
Well, of course, look, I completely agree with what Clive said, that everyone, including big multinationals, should play by the rules. But as far as I can see, generally speaking, Uber are complying with the rules about checking. I mean, the DBS checking is done by the government, for example, and checked by TfL. There are areas where they've fallen short. I mean, Clive mentioned the reporting of criminal offences. Now, Clive is absolutely right. Uber have fallen far short of the standards we should inspect when it comes to reporting offences. I think they have stopped that, and certainly if there is a shred of evidence that it's continued, then we should come down on them like a ton of bricks. But stopping 3.5 million Londoners using a service which they find useful is a complete overreaction. And talking to women's charities, actually, over the weekend, women's charities are saying they think actually this will make the city, London, less safe for women because they use Uber to get home late at night.
Clive, that's a fair point, isn't it?
Well, there are other private hire firms. We've not shut down the private hire industry, and there are many of those that were displaced by the sudden explosion of Uber. And I didn't hear Uber complaining about the jobs that were lost as a consequence of that in those companies. But the point is that Uber were put on notice about this. They were given an extension to their licence to sort this out.
Well, they would say
they would say they'd
sort it out. They would say that that's out. I've got a suspicion that we're going to come back to this on this show very, very soon. Thank you both very much.